Good evening and welcome to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Back at it after a week 2 matchup. It seems like it's been a while. Thursday night football, Chiefs handling the Chargers. We break it all down right here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. With us, as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com, Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, SumerSports.com. I don't know. I gotta learn the website. Okay.
Yep.
SumerSports.com. Of course, a wonderful new venture that Eric has headed out with Thomas Dimitroff, former general manager for the Atlanta Falcons. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We have a lot to cover tonight because not only do we have a big game, a big AFC West showdown to talk about, Chiefs surviving against the Chargers. We also have a suspension coming down. Bad news on the defensive side of the ball. The defense have been playing well, but they'll play without Willie Gay, their linebacker, for 4 games. We'll talk about how much that affects them, the cumulative effect of losing him and Trent McDuffie for at least 3 more games without McDuffie. Should the Chiefs be extending Willie Gay Jr.? He's played good football up until now. Are we bullish on this defense? What was your biggest takeaway from Thursday? AFC West, is it already over? Is it already over? I think I know there'll be a disagreement there on that one. Why does the offense struggle in short yardage? Are you encouraged, discouraged, buying, selling with the wide receivers? What's it going to be? Are the Colts a dangerous team or just a bad team? Make our predictions as well, but let's start at the top. Willie Gay goes down for 4. I don't want to bury the lead. We'll come back around to the Chargers, Jeff, but what does Willie Gay going down mean to you?
Huge loss. I mean, I think you can probably argue or debate whether he or Chris Jones is the best athlete on that side of the football, and he has a skill set that is hard to replicate. He's been playing good football. You got the speed and the athletic ability, but he's good against the run. He's better against the pass. He's your best coverage linebacker. And so now you're looking at a defense that has a huge hole in the middle. And when you couple that with the loss of cornerback Trent McDuffie to that hamstring injury, you do have to have some concerns about how this plays out, especially with the schedule that is coming up here. Jonathan Taylor this week. You've got the Bucs. They've been running the ball out with Leonard Fournette because they've got injury issues. The Raiders have a pretty good back in Josh Jacobs and Zamir White, and then you've also got the Bills, who are a monster right now. And so to lose him in those games, I think you probably would feel pretty good about them, especially against the Colts and the Raiders in those games. And you still have to feel good about them. They're the better team. But when you have those kind of holes in your defense, it does create issues that I think they had resolved in the first couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah, listen, I think the effect of losing Willie Gay is a big one for all the reasons you said. But I think maybe the bigger one, Eric, is the cumulative effect, right? The fact that, okay, you cover for Trent McDuffie, and I think there's a tendency to want to say, well, there's a fan, but also I believe even as a team to say, oh, no, we got this. We're all good, right? We proved that we can play just fine without Trent McDuffie. But now you've got to do it without one of your linebackers. The cumulative effect might be the bigger concern here, right?
Yeah, I think so. And it's really interesting, right? Because Willie Gay is playing that role, I think, that Devin White plays in the Tampa Bay defense, right? Where I kind of called it the fall guy on a defense, right? Where everything gets funneled to Willie Gay, right? And you saw it, like, they trust Willie Gay to make open field tackles against some of the best athletes in the entire NFL. And you saw it, for the most part, he made those tackles against the Chargers. He had the one miss against Eckler that really hurt them. But, when you look at this defense, historically over the Spagnuolo era, they gave up the least amount of yards, or one of the least amount of yards, to wide receivers. They don't really, the tight end position in the league is not that strong. So that really is a strong thing for them. So they funnel a lot of stuff to running backs. Last game against the Chargers, Willie Gay had 13 receptions on 14 targets into his coverage. And we're all thinking, oh my God, why is he giving up so many plays? And it's like, well, that only netted the Chargers 94 passing yards, right? Over the course of a game, if you take 94 divided by 14, that's not a bad proposition for the defense, right? That's 6.7 yards per attempt. That's less than league average in terms of yards per pass attempt. And so, when you look at his PFF grade, you look at all this stuff, he's getting beat sometimes, but the Chiefs trust him in situations that are difficult. Now, it's next man up. And I don't know if it's Leo Chenal. I don't know, Gay wasn't playing every snap. He was coming out in the dime, especially, he only had played the 111 snaps. So he was coming out sometimes. But it's going to be tough to replace him for sure. And, I think Bolton is playing a role that's perfect for him. I think Chenal is playing a role that's perfect for him. So to your points, Petro, it's the knockoff effect. Now you have to take both of those two guys and play them a little bit in roles that they're not comfortable with. You have to look at, other guys that, you didn't want to play or were just special teams players. And now they have to play that Willie Gay role. So it'll be interesting. I wonder if Brian Cook from Cincinnati, I know he had a tough night with penalties and stuff. I wonder if he is not the guy that comes in and plays that second linebacker role more often, a la Daniel Sorensen, because to what Jeff said, Willie Gay's strength is his athleticism, right? And there aren't that many players who have his size and his athleticism. Maybe the Chiefs say, screw it. We don't have the guy with that size and athleticism. Let's just get a guy who's an athlete out there and see what he does.
Yeah. I think this one's interesting. Terry says future sanctions on Frank Clark as well. And that's something to worry about. I mean, that's when we talk about everything starting to add up. I don't know, but based upon how the timeline worked with Willie Gay, I don't know when the final legal piece was done with Willie Gay's situation. Does it take 6 months? Does it take 9 months? Is that something they're going to wait till next year? Does the NFL take into account that you're losing other people to suspensions? I don't know, because it does seem to be somewhat random in how these things go about. But, Jeff, do you get a sense that does the league communicate to the Chiefs that, hey, this is coming, and so the Chiefs have been kind of prepared that this is where they're going to be, and where you look at Leo Chenal, and I think everybody liked his tape at Wisconsin and how he played, and that he can play the mic, and they're playing him, out of the middle as well. But is this maybe explain a little bit of why that draft pick was maybe a little more need and less, just best player available when it occurred?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, look, anytime you have a domestic violence situation in this league, we all know, looking at how Deshaun Watson's case was handled, that the league is just not going to fool around with this stuff anymore. They're going to take a hard line with it. And even though it happened back in January and he's been in diversion and the case got concluded 3 or 4 months ago, I mean, this could have been 6 games. And so it seems pretty apparent that there was some kind of negotiation going on, some kind of discussion about what he would accept and not appeal. And even the way the statement was worded, it seemed as if there's a lot of talking about how this would play out. And so, yeah, I'm sure that they, maybe not to the extent of what it would be punishment-wise, but they had to have some idea that some kind of punishment was going to be coming, that just they're not going to let this stuff go. And it's and I think as far as Frank Clark goes, yeah, you have to assume that's going to be part of the conversation as well at some point, just because this is all about whether you tarnish the shield and whether you are hurting the credibility of the league. I know that when Deshaun Watson was the topic, there were a lot of people around, not just here, but around the NFL, who were like, bury him under the jail. And I said, it's always easier when it's not the player you care about who's going through that process. Once it's somebody that you like, all of a sudden the details and everything that you're hearing become a lot more up for debate and why is this happening. So I just feel like anytime you're running afoul of the domestic violence policy or any policy that makes the NFL look bad, you're going to get dinged.
Leo Chenal, your expectation, if he is the guy that they turn to step up here, and you would think it's going to be a thumper with Jonathan Taylor coming at him. I mean, I made the case today on my radio show that maybe this is the best opponent for the Chiefs to be facing right now, because they do want to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. That is their identity. The remnants of Matt Ryan are not going to carry you in any kind of game. So they're going to need to get that running game going. And that would seem to at least fit towards what Leo Chenal was as a player at Wisconsin.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not only that, it's, it's again, like Willie Gay's strength is that he's a modern linebacker. Any go back to backups are going to get you closer to the linebackers that have played in the league forever, right? Elijah Lee and the guys like that. It's, Jermaine Carter types, right? Like they're going to elevate somebody here who's going to play some. It's going to fit like a glove this week, right? Indianapolis's offense is going to be in long yardage situations because they're going to try to run the ball and get back to their identity. And to the Chiefs' credit, like they've been sturdy, right? They've been sturdy against the run to a certain extent, more than normal. And they've been, as you said this on your show a number of times, they have athletes. That it helps to have safeties and linebackers who can get to the line of scrimmage quicker. And the Colts are going to try to protect Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's been horrendous so far under pressure this year. And the Chiefs, to their credit, you look at their pressure stats: Chris Jones, 12 pressures; George Karlaftis, 9. Michael Dana from Jeff's Michigan Wolverines, 8 pressures for Michael Dana. We'd be in November before he'd get to 8 pressures. I feel like in previous seasons, like they're looking at this Chiefs defense, they're like, what are we going to do? And this is a team that was shut out by the Jags. So I think this week you're going to get more long yardage situations, which is why I think Brian Cook's going to play. I think, Chenal is going to play, but they're not going to be playing Willie Gay's position straight up because the Colts are not going to be in straight up situations on offense.
By the way, if you're catching us via the podcast, we stream live Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Central. If you want to be a part of the conversation on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, you can comment in our comment section. And one of the comments, Terry just said, Clark, meaning Frank Clark's probably not coming back next year anyway. I don't think there's kind of a consensus that losing Frank Clark whenever they do to some suspension, if they do, is not going to be a loss. But he said, short leash now for Gay. I mean, we're talking about this the other way when we were prepping what our topics were going to be, Jeff. I mean, the conversation was about extending Willie Gay. Short leash, like you're going to get rid of Willie Gay? No. I mean, I think, he's a second-round pick, so there's no fifth-year option. He'll go into the last year of his deal next year, and any player that enters the last year, I think is, if they're any good, should roll the dice and get to the end of the year and try the free agent market. The time to sign him will be at the end of this year. So this does affect that, right? He has been a player at risk since the day they drafted him. We know what the background was at Mississippi State. He did sound at training camp, and Jeff, I don't know if it was the days that you were there, because I think it was right around the time that you were in KC. It might have been somewhere else. I know you travel extensively around the camps, but he seemed like he was in a good place. He said he was in a good place. He talked about mental health. He talked about what he'd been through. So, I mentioned this with Tim Grunhard today. I do worry a little bit that, football is important to the guy, and you take that away. Does he backslide? I hope not. I hope it's the, hey, one last reminder of focus, do the right thing, and get back to it. But as a football player, you try to extend this guy, right?
I think you have to have a long conversation about it. I mean, look, I don't want to say there's pressure on the Chiefs to make this happen with him, but you can't have 3 straight draft classes go by where you're not signing somebody you drafted to a long-term extension. I mean, it's very likely that they could have, obviously the 18 class, nobody was signed to a long-term deal. 20, you're talking about Hardman probably not getting a long-term deal. You're talking about guys like Thornhill, guys like Edwards-Helaire. And Willie Gay's the most obvious choice in that group to be somebody you want to keep around. The downside is he has been banged up. Downside is, you hate to say it as a downside, it's not, I want to be sensitive to this, but mental health issues and now legal problems. And so that there's a lot to unpack there when you're talking about trying to hold on to a guy and have a guy be a part of your franchise for a long period of time. I think he's becoming a really good player and there's value there. I think he's got a great rapport with Nick Bolton. But there are a lot of red flags here that I don't think it's as simple as just he's a great player or he's a talented player. Let's hold on to him. I think you have to think long and hard about what you're going to get down the road from Willie Gay.
There are factors at work here that I think could make this interesting, right? The first one is what we saw with Tyreek Hill, right? Not to be crass, but the Chiefs got a good value out of Tyreek Hill because of circumstances that Tyreek Hill put himself in, right? And they got a good value for him. And it sounds like Willie Gay is a guy who, back to his time at Mississippi State and now with the Chiefs, is a very thoughtful guy who has made mistakes, right? That is something where if the Chiefs can provide an environment for him to succeed as a person, they might be able to convince him to stay for a not top dollar deal, right? Because again, right now they would be buying. If you look at the top end linebacker deals, right, you're looking at Shaq Leonard, Fred Warner, CJ Mosley when he signed with the Jets had a great career with the Ravens Foye Oluokan's an interesting one. Deion Jones, had a great career prior. Shaq Thompson was good. Jerome Baker. Like, you look at those deals, those aren't great defenses, right? If you look down the list, it's not a position you really want to invest in. However, there is like an Austin Eckler sort of thing to this, right? Where the Chargers were able to get Austin Eckler for cheap because he sat behind Melvin Gordon and he had deficiencies in his game that people looked out to. And now I think Austin Eckler is a very good contract for the Chargers. So you look at this and say, what if you can get Willie Gay at 5 years, $40 million or something like that? It's $8 million a year. It's still probably not like plus EV, but it's also way below market value. And for him as a person, it's probably a good thing to be like, look, man, you've never played a full season. You've been great in spurts, but you haven't put together a Fred Warner 2020 type year. Let's meet halfway here. Let's keep you in Kansas City and let's make sure that you're happy. And there's a supportive environment for you, the team that drafted you despite issues at Mississippi State and has stuck with you despite issues. And you come back with us and we'll give you obviously life-changing money, but not market level money. Like, I think that's the blueprint here. I don't know, players don't normally take that deal because they should, like, there's always going to be a team that's going to give Willie Gay $14 million a year. So that's like, I think the sticky part here.
I think there are a couple things that go into it, and Oil Karen, I love that name. I'm not a contract expert, but can they put incentives on not missing games to suspension? Like, you can put in roster game by game roster bonuses, right? So that if you're active, you earn a bonus every single game. That's a regular part of the contract.
Yeah, but those generally speaking fall under likely to be earned, and so they count against the Chiefs cap. That's the tricky thing
which is okay, and you plan on it with the cap, but then if he doesn't, you get the money back and you get a cap credit for next year.
And ask Dallas how that went with Randy Gregory.
It makes sense. From the Chiefs cap accounting perspective, it doesn't, because you have to account for those you get the money back, but from a planning perspective, you have to allocate that.
Yeah. I mean, yes, you go in, having to clear the full freight, but I mean, I don't think we're talking about like he's going to get let's call it an $8.5 million deal with 500,000 of it on every game, right? He gets if it's an $8.5 million deal, it's going to be $6 million guaranteed, and then roster bonuses that take it up another $2.5 million. I mean, probably be 100,000 a game, something along those lines, just to protect the team a little. They have to count it for the cap, but they'll take the credit next year. The Chiefs have actually done a decent job of rolling, cap credits, year to year. Credit to their cap department for being able to get that done. But I do think that, getting a contract done with him, and I know it's like we're kind of tiptoeing around like, hey, are you just preying on the fact that the guys had issues? I think you're preying on it. You're dealing in reality. You've been a player at risk, but we believe in you. Here's a contract that's more than what you've earned because we think you're going to be there on the back end. But no, it's not the most you can get if you have two sensational seasons. And then I think it's up to him. I mean, I think it is a guy that you say, look, if what you want is money in this world, then get out on the open market. If you found a home and you're comfortable here, let's find a deal that works for you and works for us.
Yeah.
And I think there's a place. I think there's common ground.
Well, and I think what you have to look at is what happened with Randy Gregory in Dallas, which is you had a player who was talented, who missed a lot of games for a number of reasons, whether it was injuries or suspensions, and the Cowboys tried to play that game with him of let's give you a deal where we're going to give you a lot of money, but we're going to write in a lot of restrictions and incentives and, tricky language to make sure we're covering our butt here. And what happened? Denver walked in, gave him a big deal, and he left. And so that is always going to be the danger with a guy in Willie Gay situation is they're not going to franchise him. He's playing position that is, you look at what's happened to Roquan Smith in Chicago and trying to get paid. I mean, these guys are aware of what other players are trying to get financially. And so do I think it would make sense for him to do what we're talking about? Yeah. But have I seen too many players go the other way with it? Yeah, I think so too. I don't think his agent would take a discount based on where he's at right now.
And we have evidence that this current Chiefs regime would say, okay, we're happy for you.
Yeah.
Like this is a second round pick linebacker. This isn't, he's a good player. Like, don't get me wrong, but like
it's not a 24-year-old pass rusher going to the market after an 18-sack season, right?
Right. I mean, it's a player. It's a good player who seems like a good Kansas City Chief at a non-premium position. And if he wants, like, it's the same thing with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a great year this year and he comes and says, "I want the world," the Chiefs are going to say no, and Soren's going to cry a little bit, but we're all going to be okay. And the Chiefs will survive. And, to your point, like, there are premium positions that are not. I mean, there's a reason, and again, I don't mean to sound crass, but there's a reason they got rid of Kareem Hunt almost immediately after all of his stuff, and they hung around with Tyreek Hill. Like, these things, I mean, there's football like this. These are adult. Like, this is a football, it's a football world, right? There are premium positions, and then there are positions that teams feel like they can replace. And even like, look at the linebackers that I showed you, the top paid guys. Like, one of the signs of it not being a premium position is some of these guys weren't drafted by the teams that signed them to big deals, right? Mosley, Aluakon, Zach Cunningham, Bobby Wagner, even now. Like, you can get linebackers in free agency. So, I hope that Willie Gay stays with the Chiefs, but I think that the Chiefs are in a position now where, very much like Jamie Collins, it was like Belichick's like, "Go make your money, Jamie. Come back when you want to come back." But
I will point out, you say it's easy, but they did have Anthony Hitchens, and it hasn't been easy for them. They've had to draft them in higher rounds. They haven't just found guys out there. I'm just pointing out what's gone on the last couple of years.
Yeah, the Anthony Hitchens one is a mistake that I think they learned from, though, right? Like,
I hope. I don't believe that Steve Spagnuolo did, because he played him more snaps in the AFC Championship game than. Are you really going to get me going on this again? That somehow minicamp made Nick Bolton a better player than Anthony Hitchens? That somehow actually back in the end of January, Anthony Hitchens was still better, and she would.
I think you can make a very compelling case that over the last 12 months, the balance of power with the Chiefs has swung from Andy Reid's group to Brett Veach's group. Maybe not majority, but more than they have before. Yeah, I think when I say they've learned from it, I think that the balance of power has shifted towards the personnel side, and the personnel side is making some of these decisions more than the coaching side is. But yeah, I agree. You're right. I mean, the evidence would suggest that the Anthony Hitchens thing certainly is a sign, because Anthony Hitchens was making $9 million APY. I mean, that's crazy stuff.
Yeah, that was an issue. By the way, you can mock my passion for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. On pace now for 986 yards rushing, 646 yards receiving, and on pace for what? Let's see.
One shoulder injury, one pulled hamstring,
and 17 total touchdowns.
I mean, can we pause? There are men that play Thursday morning Thanksgiving Day games who run more athletically with the football than Clyde did on that game sealing run.
I don't care. I don't care. 1,600 yards and 17 touchdowns.
Good for him.
I'm
rooting for him.
Somebody had a bold and daring prediction that he would be over 1,000 yards and over 1,500 yards from scrimmage, and that somebody has two thumbs and is sitting right here. Now,
I bet him over 701.5 yards, Petro. I'm with you, bro. I'm with you. I'm just saying, like I said, it's going to be interesting, because that's the big test for Veach, right? He got skewered for taking a running back first round, and if he shows anything this year or next year, they're going to want to justify that pick by giving him a contract, and the battle to not do that is probably going to be a difficult one.
Yeah, I think the market may establish itself for him. But if he goes and you get a draft pick, so be it. If he stays, you sign him for the deal you want to get him signed for. Is Clyde Edwards-Helaire your biggest takeaway from the Charger game, Jeff? Is that what you come away from? Or is it that you're now ready to bump the Chiefs' 10-7 record up? We asked this after the opener. You weren't ready to bump it up then. What's your biggest takeaway from the Thursday night game?
Biggest takeaway is that Chiefs still know how to win these kind of games, and Chargers don't. I think that is, this is no knock on what the Chiefs did, but the Chargers had every opportunity to win that game, and let it slip through their fingers. And I was on the radio earlier today with the Border Patrol guys in KC, and I was making the analogy to being a Pistons fan back when I was growing up and watching the 87 NBA playoffs. And the Pistons were this team that had all this talent that were trying to get past the Lakers and the Celtics. They're in Game 5 in Boston Garden. They're up 1, make a great defensive play. Isaiah Thomas grabs the ball in a hurry, tried to throw a pass, inbounds pass with a few seconds left, and Larry Bird steals it, passes to Dennis Johnson. Series is over, 2 games later. That's what the Chargers look like to me, a team that is really talented and made some great moves, but you can't drop 3 interceptions or whatever it was, 3 or 4, and have 4 or 5 negated overall by just bad plays. It's just they played a really good game, but they didn't play well enough. And the takeaway there is if you're going to try to beat a team that has been as accomplished as the Chiefs have been over the last 4 years, then you better hit on every last opportunity you get.
Do you still like the Chargers to win the division?
Oh, yeah. Nothing changed in my mind. The Chargers were the more talented team on the field. There's no question about that. There's no question about it.
I think we have to be careful, right? The Chiefs didn't play well Thursday. I think defensively they played well. I actually like the defense. Offensively, they were stuck in the mud, and I think you see the Chiefs in this new era without Tyreek Hill. When the other team is a superstar type player that can lock down Travis Kelce, they're going to struggle on the outside, right? So when they play teams like the Rams, they play teams like the Chargers, teams with like that mega safety guy, right? That inside player, that corner that can play in the slot or whatever. They're going to have you're going to need DeMarquez Valdez-Scantling to play well. You're going to need Juju to play better than he played. But the takeaway from this game was the Chiefs are better than the Chargers. The Chargers played better than the Chiefs, and the Chiefs won. And that happens like I've said this numerous times. And by the way, Justin Herbert is legitimately injured. Like we talk about, when you look at the Chargers schedule coming up,
he's going to play.
Is classic.
He ain't missing games. He'll be out there.
He's not going to miss games, but like he's going to struggle out there with that. I mean, he has a legitimate injury, and you look at the Jaguars are no joke anymore. The Texans, they lost to the Texans last year. This team is. And you look at the Browns. They will be fine against the Browns. Have played fairly well. The end of the game against the Jets is a privilege, but like it's classic Chargers to have 3 gimmies in a row and have your quarterback not be able to cough for those games. So that's what I'm worried about. If I'm a Chargers fan, is there's not like you lost your margin for error on Thursday night, and not only that, you came out of the game and your quarterback, like I said. Justin Herbert is legitimately injured, and he is going to be hampered for probably the next month. And this is a month where the Chargers have to stack wins because this is the Chiefs' tough situation, right? They have Buffalo, they have Tampa, and like this is where the Chargers could gain ground on the Chiefs, but their quarterback, their best player, is hurt.
So you came away from that game thinking the Chiefs were more talented. I'll tell you they're the better team. They're the more talented team. There's more talent on the Kansas City's roster than on the Chargers roster.
The Chiefs were favored by the Chiefs.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm saying the Chargers are less talented than the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are a better team.
More talented, not better team. Yeah. Are they more talented?
I mean, when you add it all up, the Chiefs will be favored against the Chargers on a neutral field. And regardless of that, I agree with everybody that says the Chargers outplayed the Chiefs.
You are kind of avoiding his question. He's asking you about raw talent.
Yeah.
Not who's favored, not who's the better team.
Yeah, but that's irrelevant though. Like
it's not irrelevant to his question.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Well, I just because I think I'm probably, as is unfortunately always, not always, but oftentimes the case, I'm on your side and Jeff's on an island on this. But I think you're making a piss poor case by avoiding the question. He asked you the question. Let's answer that and then see where he goes from there. Who's more talented, the Chiefs or the Chargers?
The Chargers have more talented players on the roster.
Okay, and I would
agree. The Chiefs are a better team.
I'm fine. I'm fine with that. And I think Jeff said the same thing to open when he said because part of being a better team is knowing how to win these games. And the Chiefs, that's the first thing Jeff said. The Chargers still don't know how to win these games. And I agree with Jeff, which is, Eric, what we've talked about. Chargers going to Charger. Whether it's being hurt and everybody blames their losses on being hurt, when in reality the Chiefs are hurt. They were hurt in that game. They had Trent McDuffie down. They had their kicker out. They missed an extra point, yet they still found a way to win. And I will bristle at this. I mean, the Chargers have a bigger quantity. If you match it up and say, okay, let's rank them 1 to 106, and we'll give a point, 106 for number 1, all the way down to 1. The Chargers' point total is going to be higher, but if every player counts the same, Mahomes is definitively better than Herbert. That's one thing that I think was established. It was time to make a play at the goal line. It was time to win a game, and Herbert pissed himself. No way around it.
Would you put that on Herbert or Gerald Everett for running a bad route?
I mean,
I think that's more to do.
By the way,
with
we have to call a spade a spade. It's Justin Herbkirk, because in the second half of that game, he was. I've never seen a more Kirk Cousinian way. Like, look, that game was like the Super Bowl against the Niners. Like, Patrick Mahomes didn't play well. The offense was in the mud. They had a 10-point deficit. And whether by hook or by crook, right, Justin Herbert looked an awful lot like Jimmy Garoppolo when they went 3-and-out 2 straight drives and punted 3
The man threw for 334 yards and 3 touchdowns without his top receiver.
I get it. 80 and a touchdown of that. 80 and a touchdown of that came after the game was decided.
Yeah, but here's where I mean, Jeff, I mean, you're the guy who's like, oh, it's about stats, and now you're throwing stats around.
I'm just saying, I think it's like, what I'm saying is, I don't think Herbert's interception was about a quarterback making a bad decision. I think the bad decision was not getting Everett out of the game or not taking time out. I think Everett ran a horrible route, and he threw the ball to a guy who was standing behind it.
Which yes, see Eric's point, better team, which coaching includes being the better team. Absolutely. Absolutely. They had predetermined that they were going to go for it. And that's been their thing. Yeah. They predetermined what they're going to do, and they have no artistic ability in playing the feel of the game. And it's pre-programmed stuff regardless. And there are real human elements that come into it, and they misread that.
But they screwed it up by not going for 4th downs. They gifted the Chiefs
agree, because they had pre-programmed that didn't work last time, so we're not going to do it this time. And he does not have a feel for when to and when not to. Right. And he'd been better off just either follow your card or follow your gut. But it's blackjack, and it's 16 against a 10. Either you can really do either, but don't go back and forth. Either hit it every time or stick every time. The math's pretty much the same. You know, you're not gonna, but this is a little different than just raw numbers of blackjack. There's a human element, like your tight end can barely stand up. Don't make the play. But if you're Justin Herbert, listen, Patrick Mahomes throws interceptable balls, but that aren't intercepted, and we ding him for that. Herbert throws one right to a guy, and that's a free pass because the tight end was tired. I mean, we got to grade it either the results or we're going to cherry pick situations that are.
Let me ask you this: if that's Everett, that's the middle of the field, and Everett runs the wrong route and intercepting is throwing, are we saying, oh, Justin Herbert made a horrible play? To me, it's the same thing. But the receiver's not doing what he's supposed to do, and you throw the ball to the quarterback, you're going to get blamed for that. I think that receivers do that all the time.
Listen, did we not come into this season talking about Mahomes didn't play well last year? Mahomes didn't play well in the second half, of the Bengals game. The first part of the year, everyone was ripping Patrick Mahomes, and 7 of his first 9 interceptions were 74% likely to be caught, or whatever that number was. But you are what the end results are, and Mahomes wasn't playing well, yet he made the plays at the end of the game, right? And Andy Reid took the field goal to the chagrin of many, and it was the difference in the game. I just, to me, it's either all on everybody for their performance, or it's just they're all just papers blowing in the breeze, and it's all luck.
I think there's more nuance to it. What I'm saying is, I don't think just because that was the biggest play in the game doesn't mean that Justin Herbert is a loser or a choke artist. I think that there's a lot to be said about what he did do in that game. Doesn't mean he's not as good as Patrick. And my thing is, the game shouldn't have come down to that play in the first place. If Asante Samuel catches 2 interceptions, 2 balls, that's not about coaching. That's about having a chance to make a play and you don't make it. And I'm not going to sit here and say, that this is Chargers chargering. I think that's like, it's an easy thing to say when you're the team that has a championship ring, right? And people forget about all the moments the Chiefs had to go through to get to that place. This is part of the Chiefs' journey, part of the Chargers' journey. It's part of the Bills' journey. It's everybody's journey. I think that you have to make those plays. I totally fault the Chargers for not making those plays. That's how I look at the game.
It's year 3 for Herbert. And he played his first year. So we got even more game experience than Mahomes did, where his first year he watched. It's year 3. Mahomes went on to win a Super Bowl. In 2018, he went to the AFC Championship game. Justin Herbert has yet to win a playoff game. He's yet to play in a playoff game.
It's week 2.
I know, but you got to win these games, right? Like, weren't you the one who just said a week or two ago they all count the same?
I totally agree with that. I'm not sitting here saying Justin Herbert is going to be the next Troy Aikman or whatever, whoever's got championship, or Joe Montana. All I'm saying is he's a really talented quarterback, one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. The Chargers have a very talented roster, and they still have not found a way to take advantage of those moments when they can win games. Buffalo Bills were in the same boat last year, and they're playing at a whole different level this year, which is to say nothing's being taken for granted. We're not leaving anything to chance now. And you're seeing how they're playing now. Yeah. That's the Chargers could play at that level if they had that kind of mentality.
I'm with you. And frankly, everybody on Buffalo played well enough to advance last year, especially Josh Allen, with the exception of whatever dumbass decided to kick away. That was it. And then the defensive calls, Leslie Frazier's.
But do you guys?
Calls.
I mean,
but I want to the Herbert thing. No, like, are you saying he's going to be this guy? I'll call what he is. He's Matt Ryan. He's going to put up a bunch of numbers. He's going to play in some playoff games. He's going to win some divisions, but he's also going to quarterback at 7. He's Phillip Rivers. Right. I mean, he is not like that was his moment, and he'll have others.
What were we saying about Josh Allen?
He blew it
2 years ago. What were we saying about Josh Allen 2 years ago? What was the book on him?
2 years ago, he was in year what? He was in year 3.
Year 3.
It was 2 years
at
ago.
This point, going to season. Yeah.
I mean, he was very much. It's a very good point. He's very much where Herbert is right now. Last year was the year where you went, oh no, I think this guy's he's gonna stomp some teeth. He's for real. So it's a very good point. But are you saying, first of all, are you gonna put rings on both those guys' fingers before their careers are over?
I think Herbert wins the championship. Yeah. Oh yeah. I think he's too talented not to. I think the way this is playing out, this is the Bills' year. The Bengals may have had their year last year, make another one with Burrow with the contract he's on. But I think Burrow, Herbert, and Allen will all have opportunities to win championships in the next 2 or 3 years. Just because they're on rookie contracts, they have a ton of talent around them. It's there's too much going for it not to happen.
But here's my thing: like Andy Reid. And again, it's atrophied a little bit in the last few years because they played more close games, because they've been a little weaker now that Pat has the veteran deal and all that stuff. But how did Andy Reid win 66% of his games with Alex Smith at QB? Because most of their games were 2-score games or more, and they kicked the hell out of teams in that situation. He had the same record as Bill Belichick in 2-score games or more. The reason the Chargers. And again, I agree with you, Jeff. Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, Brandon Staley didn't drop those interceptions. Brandon Staley didn't throw the pick. But you know what he did? He kept the game within 1 score. And that's a problem, right? Like, at the end of the half, the Chargers had the ball, I believe, with the lead. And instead of shoving it in, like, just going for it, they punt on 4th and short, basically at midfield. And they just bailed the Chiefs out. And to me, what's the difference between losing a game by 30, right? And we saw that last year with the Chargers. They lost the Ravens game by 30 because they went for 4th downs early in the game. They didn't get them, and the Ravens dump trucked them. Like, to beat the Chiefs, you have to have 2 and 3 score leads. And you have to put the pedal to the metal. And that's why I called it Justin Herbert. Because when they had a 2-score lead, they went 3 and out. I believe the second one was like 1 first down and then a punt. Like, when Andy, like, and again, Andy's not perfect. He's surrendered 3 18-point leads in playoff games. But like the way that you win when you have and Andy, this is again, Andy's not a perfect coach, but the reason he wins 60, 70% of his games is because he wins 2-score games all the time. And the Chargers leave it to chance. And the same thing, you talk about the Bengals last 7 games that Joe Burrow has started, every single one of those games, the Bengals either had the lead or were tied in the last 2 minutes of the game. And you know what? They won the first 4 of those, including 2 against the Chiefs, and they lost the last 3. There's nothing's changed about the Bengals. It's just the coins have flipped over on the other side. And that, the Chargers, when you leave things to chance, that's what you deserve. Well, and the one thing Andy has figured out is to not leave games to chance, because we know how much Andy struggles at the end of those games. So good on him for saving himself from himself.
Yeah, and what I'll say to that is, at halftime of that game, I was talking to some guy with the Chargers, and they agreed with what you guys were saying, that the Chargers should have been more aggressive. But their perspective, which was interesting to me, was that they felt as if Staley was coaching to make the point of, I'm going to outshine Andy Reid's offense tonight. I'm going to put together a game plan that's going to shut down the Chiefs' offense, and I'm going to be the genius. And that's the kind of stuff that you do, if it's true, that's the kind of stuff you do as a young coach that gets you into trouble. It's the kind of stuff that Andy Reid did, be honest with you, in the first year he had Patrick Mahomes, which was to think, I'll just go out there and design all kinds of great plays and we're going to win because we got this great offense. To win games like this in the way that they did, you have to understand the moments. You have to understand the situations. And right, Soren mentioned the field goal. That's a key play, just as much as the Chargers rushing in that situation with Gerald Everett being tired was a key play. Understanding, okay, what do we want to accomplish here? What do we need to do here? Because this is a big moment in the game. I would even argue with Asante Samuel that when you're up 17-7 and that ball is coming your way, you're thinking game's about to be over. Because I got 2 guys next to me. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the only guy in front of me. I'm going to the end zone with this. We're celebrating. It's 24-7. Pass rush is going to get unleashed. I guarantee you in that moment, if you gave him some true serum or put a Wonder Woman rope around him and got the truth out of him, he would tell you, yeah, I relaxed. I thought game is over. And you have to not relax when you're playing against the Chiefs.
The Chargers are now 1 game behind the Kansas City Chiefs, and this is the schedule that they face. All right? Jaguars, at Texans, at Browns, Broncos, Seahawks, at Falcons before they go to the 49ers. Let's put it this way. There's something fundamentally flawed if they're not in first place after playing those games.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Right?
I agree. I expect them to be 6-1 after that. That's true.
I accept that premise, by the way.
Yeah,
that there's something fundamentally flawed with the team.
Yeah, if you can't take that schedule, then this group isn't going to work. Either the quarterback is what I said, he's Matt Ryan, and he's pretty good and he hangs numbers, but in the moment, it's not going to be there. The coach is just eminently flawed. There's something clearly wrong if you can't run the table, or at the very least just get tripped up once. Yeah. Jaguars, Texans, Browns, Broncos, Seahawks, Falcons. Right? At the Texans, at the Browns, at the Falcons. There are 3 on the road. That's 6 games. You need to be grabbing all 6 of them.
Yep.
Because at the same time, the next 6 games for the Kansas City Chiefs, at the Colts, at the Bucks, Raiders, Bills, at 49ers, Titans.
Yeah. I totally agree.
By the way, the light is shined on the Chiefs there, right? Colts are way worse than we all thought they'd be, right? At least like early on.
I think they're dangerous. I wouldn't pick them, but they're dangerous this week. 0-2 at home, they're dangerous.
Sure. Is that what we view the Colts as? Is dangerous, not bad?
I think that way. Yeah.
Eric?
I understand that Jacksonville has some sort of hex over them, but if you get shut out by the Jaguars, I have real questions about you.
Me too.
And then Tampa Bay has 2 offensive touchdowns this year, right? And their defense looks amazing, right? Their defense looks great. Tampa's I think they're number 2, I believe, or number 1 in percentage of perfectly covered plays. So like plays where no defensive back makes a mistake. So they're good on defense, but their offense is horrendous and has been for both weeks. I'm trying to.
But they're also that's like the caveat. They're playing without a lot of
Well, but they're not going to be playing with those guys against the Chiefs in 2 weeks.
Godwin should be back by then. Evans will be back.
They might have some of them. The premise is good.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens for them against the Packers, and we can talk more about that one on 2D. But I mean, to the premise of the Colts, I mean, the quarterback's an important part of the equation. They haven't been able to get that right. Like, I mean, the Chris Ballard v. Brett Veach, whatever Brett Veach's role, and he's given a lot of credit for it, whether it's after the fact, in getting Patrick Mahomes. You know, Chris Ballard is diet Carl Peterson, right? Like he's finding some talented players, but not the key positions, that matter.
Right.
And Pittman being out is a big loss. When they don't have Pittman out there, their passing game goes from being whatever average to being abysmal. He didn't play last week.
But Paris Campbell was taken, at the same time that Cole Hardman was. He's done.
I get your point. Yeah.
I mean, they've got other guys they've invested in, and they're not getting squat from them. So
the Niners are banged up. The Titans are terrible, right? The Titans went from the 1 seed to a 10-point underdog in week 2 in very quick fashion. Like this schedule, again, the schedule is lightened up on the Chiefs, right? Bucks aren't as strong.
It's lightened up. It's lightened up on the entire AFC.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's lightened up on the Chargers and the Chiefs, right? Because the Broncos blow, the Raiders blow, and then the other teams, all those other teams that you're talking about, they have to play. The different games between the two, I'll have to look that up again. I've got the schedules here. Hang on.
I'm not so quick to just say, hey, the schedule is completely different now. I think there's a lot of factors that are playing into how these teams are playing that can change from week to week.
So let me pose the question. Is the AFC West over? And let me remind you about what games are different between the Chiefs and Chargers. The Chiefs have the Bills. The Chargers have the Dolphins. Bills were the favorite to win the Super Bowl, and if anything, they look better. I don't know how that could be, but they look better. The Dolphins still look better than what they thought they were going to get. That's their finishing place game on the AFC and on that side. The Chiefs have the Bengals and Bucks. See, the Chiefs have the Bengals. The Chargers have the Browns. Bengals are playing back towards the Browns right now, right? Like their offensive line is crap. They look like they've got a Super Bowl hangover. I think the Chiefs are getting more of a kiss on that one. The Browns.
They played T.J. Watt and Micah Parsons in the first 2 weeks of the season. I mean, yeah, they haven't looked great, but
and what quarterback played for the Cowboys?
To get after the quarterback. What's that?
Who played quarterback for the Cowboys?
Well, they didn't play well defensively. I'll say that, but it wasn't like that was the reason. They could not block Micah Parsons. And I will say this:
tits lit by. I can't even remember the guy's name. Who the hell is the quarterback of the Cowboys? Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush. Come on. The Bengals
did nothing in the second half. I watched that. He did nothing in the second half of that game. They couldn't block. and what I'll tell you this is that I would say, as much as people are killing their offensive line, Joe Burrow is running the same problem Patrick Mahomes ran into early last season, which is he thinks he can make a big play on every passing down. They got to start going quick game.
I agree.
They got to stop thinking they can sit back there for 10 seconds with the football 80 yards down the field to Jamar Chase because it's getting him killed.
The other game that's different, and this is the big one, and this is to Eric's point, if the Bucks are going to play down, and if they are a team that's just because they have beaten
they've had 2 good road wins.
Yeah.
But it's defense, and you're going to have to score more than 1 offensive touchdown to beat the Chiefs. I'll say that.
Chiefs have the Bucks, Chargers have the Falcons. And that's the big difference game. I mean, really, they're the Dolphins look pretty good. The Bills are tougher. Right. So there's no doubt that the Chargers have the easier schedule. Scheduling formula has worked. They should get it done. Period. End of discussion. There are no excuses. I don't want to hear injuries. I don't want to hear piss poor stadium. Like, up yours. Get it done. Right. Enough.
I'll just say that the Chiefs don't have to do a silent count when they're at home.
I mean, frankly, the schedule difference there, that's a good one. The schedule difference there is such that the Chargers ought to be 2010 Chiefing it. A Chiefs team that went 2-4 in the division and still won the division. That's how much better that schedule should kiss them. And if they would get swept by the Chiefs, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
I don't see it happening. Look, my whole take on this whole season is it's going to be wild from week to week. If you haven't realized that yet, it's You look at 4 teams blowing whatever double-digit deficits in week 2. You look at what happened with the Ravens, and the Dolphins. The way the Dolphins looked, they're becoming a player in this. It's not as simple as, okay, now these teams are bad because they're 0-1-1 or they're 0-2 or they're not killing it on offense, or these guys. It's like everybody's going to have injuries. Everybody's going to lose players. Everybody's going to have stretches where they look really good and stretches when they look not that good. But at the end of the day, talent is what's going to win out. The more talented teams at the end of the day. And that's why Buffalo is head and shoulders above everybody else, because they're playing with the mindset of like, who cares if we lose? We got a zillion players on our rosters who can play. We're tired of losing in the playoffs. This is our time to win. And so if you have enough teams, the teams that take that mentality will be fine. My concern about the Chiefs is that this ain't 2018 anymore. What they have at receiver is not what they had even last year at receiver, because you saw what Tyreek Hill was doing in Miami, and you saw the guys that they had in this game get 70 yards receiving between them. That to me is a concern, that Sky Moore is not a factor. McCole Hardman is who he is, and Juju and MVS are really not big time playmakers. And so, yeah, if you can shut down Kelsey, you can create a lot of tough days for this offense.
I will say this, though, on offense, they're doing some of the things we wanted them to do, which is to line up and run the football and be physical on offense. I like the Tyreek Hill trade was still a good trade for the Chiefs. He clearly has more utility to the Dolphins than he did for the Chiefs. He was not putting up 190 and 3 for the Chiefs last year because of the way that they were playing him. So,
Yeah, but can we pump the brakes on that? Because nobody was saying this after week 1, and nobody blitzes more than the Ravens. So they play, he was running wide open, which is partially a product of his speed to be that far open. But the Ravens,
the lack of respect for the quarterback too, though.
Absolutely. And the Ravens kind of do it to themselves. You've got 2 of the fastest guys in the league, and they're bringing everybody leaving corners on an island. Shame on you. Baltimore, I can tell you they've got the bus ticket purchased for the DC to get the hell out of town. They've had enough of that crap. And they're like, what the hell? What's his name? Ray McDonald, or who's the defensive coordinator?
Mike McDonald.
They're like, what is this? That's going on here. So it was a bad day for Baltimore. There's no doubt. But and listen, Tyreek Hill is a marvelous player, and we've said it a million times. The Chiefs are better with him than without him. I do think, to Jeff's point, I think it's a good one, because Eric, you and I were both bullish on the idea that no, their number 1 isn't as good, but they've made the 2, the 3, the 4 better than it was in the past, and that maybe their 2, 3, and 4 are better than what their 2 was last year. That's not looking that way right now. And again, to Jeff's point, only 2 games. 2 games, one of them against a team that can really roar off the edges and makes it harder to get the football to your wide receivers. And the Chiefs, inexplicably, we're going to get to the short yardage. We're not moving the chains like they should have, because they can't convert short yardage at times, even though they're running the ball better, which is counterintuitive to what's going on, and maybe points to Jeff's it's going to be a weird and wacky year all across the board. But I am kind of with Jeff. The Valdez-Scantling, it's feeling like, man, you don't get it on how to run a route, because they're trying to use him a different way. The vibe was, well, they were just sending him on go routes in Green Bay, and we're going to get a total package for him. He's going to do everything. And he was talking like that. And I guarantee everybody in Green Bay is like, you want to get to the go routes now? Because we tried this too. They didn't sit up there for 4 years going, we'll just stick to this one route. They knew the player, and they arrived at him running the routes he ran, because they got a Hall of Fame quarterback too. So I am a little bit, I'm discouraged. I
think it's early. I'll just say that.
Well, it's early on everything, but Jesus. But
hold on. No. So this is where I pull back. Okay. The Chargers are the the Chargers came to the battle with who their people have been, right? I know Allen was hurt, but Mike Williams he was in San Diego, right? He's a Charger. Bosa is a Charger. Derwin James is a Charger. This is the Chargers. The Chiefs, they're trying something new. To me, it's fundamentally different when you are who you always have been, right? You come into a season with Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, and Adam Thielen. You are who you are. When things turn over, they become pear-shaped. That's who you are. The Chiefs have not been Juju, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. This is a new thing. I'll say it's early on them. We're on year 3 of these being the Chargers, right? We're on game 3 of these being the Chiefs. That's the difference that I see. I agree. I wanted to see more out of Marquez. I had a first touchdown scorer prop on them. They ran him deep on play action on the first play of the game or second play of the game. I was irritated that Pat didn't give it a whirl, but yeah, I mean, it's early for them. It's not early on some of these teams that have been the same freaking rosters forever and still have the same results.
I think the point that I'm making is that you have to win. I mean, it doesn't matter if you haven't been here or not been here. The point is, for this offense to really work at a high level, your receivers have to win more than these guys won against a top flight defense. And so that's where I look at the next few games and say, you know what? Yeah, there's a lot of flaws on these teams, but defensively, the Bucs can get after you. Yeah, defensively, the Bills can get after you. Defensively, even the Colts can cause you problems. They got some good defenders over there. And then the 49ers, they got Joey Bosa's brother. They've got the big guy, Eric Armstead. They've got Fred Warner. They've got guys on the back end. It's going to be – that's what I'm going to watch over the next 4 or 5 games is how do these receivers – do they win? If they're not winning, the offense changes quite a bit.
I'm pulling the overall numbers. In the first game, the wide receivers collectively had 14 catches for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns. This game, 7 for 104.
Yeah, are we going to overlook the fact that Justin Watson was pretty damn good on Thursday?
No, I'm going to put that in.
I got to put a busted coverage.
Whoa, that throw that Pat made on that scramble.
Staley said the safety is supposed to be deep. Watch the coverage.
Okay. But there was good coverage. He beat J.C. Jackson. J.C. Jackson's a $16 million corner.
He opened up on him because he thought he had safety help. That's why he beat him.
But that's the game, bro. He made a good catch.
It was a great
I think
throw.
We've always said
he was open because the safety was in the middle of the field.
We've said all offseason that none of these guys are going to be 1,400-yard receivers. We've said that all offseason. And the point of it was
I think we're good on that one.
And my guy MBS, right? My guy MBS is 6 catches so far for 70 yards or whatever the heck. And one of these games he's going to have 100, right? But we've said, this team having depth at the position, Justin Watson doing what he did, that's the perfect emblem of, that's emblematic of it.
They went to an empty formation in the first quarter. And guess what happened? Mahomes had 3 chargers on him. It was dogs with he got hamburger suit on, and dogs were all over him. It was, and they never went back.
I mean, the Chargers traded a draft pick. I mean, look, the Chargers. We all this should happen. That's when you buy Khalil Mack and you buy J.C. Jackson and Bryce Callahan, and you already had Derwin James and Bosa. You should be good defensively, and the Chiefs still beat them with Justin Watson over the top. This is no one said that. I said it earlier. I succumbed. The Chargers have more talent. The Chiefs are a better team, and part of being a better team is having a guy like Justin Watson and step up and score a touchdown when the rest of your receivers can't pull their weight. The fact is we said this. I think Sky Moore is great. If Justin Watson beat him out, that's awesome. That means he's good.
Yeah, I will say I pulled the numbers. I mean, 14 for 169 and 2 touchdowns. These are all their wideouts. Okay, that's we'll kick the can on down the road. Then the next week, 10 for 114 and 1. That's a good one guy, and that's what they got collectively. I mean, I do think they're gonna. To your point, Eric. Yes, it's early. There's time for them to grow. They're going to have to get more on the year. For the year at this pace, they would have 204 catches for 2,405 yards. You can give Kelsey 1,400, which is at the highest end of what he done, right? You put him at 100, 1,400. You're still at 3,800 yards passing. And you're talking about a team that in 17 games is probably looking to throw around 5,000 yards. And you got to find another 1,200 yards. Now, if the 646 that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is on pace is there, I can see a scenario where you get there. But if Travis Kelce starts coming down to earth, which his age says he should, and he's at 900 yards, and now we're looking for, for them to put together, 20, 24, 25, 2,700 yards elsewhere, that's going to be necessary. It does get a little bit, it gets a little bit tougher. I mean, it's early. They got to be better, period. I think we can all agree on that, right? They're to win a championship, the wide receivers collectively have to be better, or they got to sign a healthy Odell Beckham Jr. somewhere along the way.
I'll say this: in week 2 of 2020, a season where they went 14-2 and made the Super Bowl, they went to LA in a game that Herbert wasn't even supposed to start and grinded out a 23-point game. Like these things have happened to the Chiefs before. Like the Chargers have always, that cover 3 has always hurt the Chiefs, right? Like that, Derwin James has always been kryptonite for the Chiefs offense. Even week 17 of that year where they won and luckily got the 2 seed, that was because of a McCole Hardman kick return and some short fields and stuff like that. Like this is not a Chargers team. This is not a Chargers team that the Chiefs do well offensively against, right? Even last year, like Pat had to run for 100 yards for them to win that game in Los Angeles. Like I'll say, like, again, this is part of my respect for the Chargers, where I think fundamentally they can do some good things and they eat their Wheaties. Ultimately, they don't win games, but that doesn't mean that because they suck at winning games, the Chiefs should fillet them every single week on offense. Like I think it's, again, they play some tough defenses coming up, so maybe it'll still be the case. But like this is a tough defense that they played.
Tell me, why do they struggle at short yardage, or are we again just cherry picking one game that they found a way to win? 5 opportunities. Dave Scredder from the Associated Press asked this question, and it always feels like they're kind of bad at that to me. I didn't realize it was this bad. He said 5 opportunities of 3rd and 2 or less, and they only converted 1. Like, why, Jeff? Why are they so bad at that, or how do they fix it?
Well, I don't think they're built for that. I don't think that they. This is where not having Blake Bell can be a factor. If you don't have a really good blocking tight end, it's hard to get into formations. Part of running well in those situations, aside from just having a massive road grader offensive line, is being able to trick people or being able to make people think you're going to do one thing and do another to get them off balance. And so I think that they don't have the personnel to do it consistently. They probably don't practice it that much. I heard Adam, God, I always want to say Schefter. What's Adam Teicher on the radio either today or yesterday talking about it. He made a good point.
He's the Chiefs beat guy for
ESPN. He made a good point. He said he watches a lot of Chiefs practices over the course of the year in training camp, and he's right. They don't practice. What they practice a lot of is passing the football.
Uh-huh.
Spent a lot of time passing the football. And so as a contrast, I'll tell you, when I went to the Lions training camp in August, it was the most physical training camp I've watched in years. And their whole approach is, we're going to beat you up. We're going to grind on you. We're going to be the tougher team. They wanted fights. They wanted guys, getting after it. And you could hear the pads popping from miles away. And so the Chiefs have never been that way under Andy Reid. Most West Coast coaches operate in a more cerebral approach to practice. And so if you don't have certain personnel, if you don't have great running backs, it's just hard. I mean, it's just hard to do it. I mean, I'm not surprised. And really, most of what they've done over the last 4 years, and especially in the goal line in those situations, is trickery. It's either pop passes, jet sweeps, a lot of motion, a lot of window dressing. And so I think it's part of it's just their mentality.
Yeah. To me, the how to fix it is then do what you do practice. Like, stop, acting like you're going to come in and be road graders when no one even knows how to put the truck in gear. Like, keep doing what you do. And I think that's one where Andy Reid has been on the more aggressive side of things on the 4th down, but he's got to open that up, because if he would know that he's willing to go for it on 4th down, I think you'd be willing to just run your straight offense on 3rd and 2 and not worry about an incompletion, and then run it again on 4th and 2. Like, how often does Patrick Mahomes throw 2 incompletions in a row? Not often, and to me, there are things you can do from the spread formation, but I do think you got to be, what you practice to be is who you're going to be. And I think you hit on it. And I think Tysher's right. They don't do that. So why do they try to do it? And what they decide is the most important part of keeping the chains moving is
yeah.
It makes
it's also really hard to do it when you aren't running your quarterback. And so if you're Buffalo, if you're Philadelphia, if you're Baltimore, you're putting your quarterback right up in there, and you're not worried about the hit. Andy Reid's not doing that with Mahomes anymore.
Well, not early in the season, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they won't even run the quarterback sneak because of one fluke play that happened.
And there was also the option play against the Browns in the playoffs. That was a short yardage play where he picked up the first. I think that it's not rational, right? Injury rates are what they are, and they're not that high. But it's more than just the sneak against Denver, right? It's also the option play where you got the concussion against the Browns in the playoffs.
That's fine.
On a short yardage play.
So again, run your offense, spread the field, let him take a look. How often does he scoot for first downs with his legs?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, or just run the read option and slide after you get the first down, like literally every other quarterback does who has some moves to him. I don't know. It's weird, and I think it's also hard to simulate physicality in practice.
Yeah,
that's true.
Which is part of their issue on short yardage.
Yeah,
I agree. Who wins? Let's wrap it up with predictions. You can answer along the way, dangerous or bad football team. Jeff, you think they're dangerous, the Colts, at this point. What do you got for the game?
I got Chiefs 23-17.
Okay. Interesting. 23-17, leading in command the whole way, coming from behind.
I think it's a grinded out game. I think the Colts are going to try to shorten the game. They're going to run the football. They're going to be at home, so they're going to be fired up. They're going to try to do anything possible to, sustain possessions, prolong possessions. I just think it's going to be an ugly game.
2019, Week 5, the Colts came to Kansas City on, I think, a Sunday night. Was the game, and won 19-13 behind 132 yards rushing from Marlon Mack, 151 passing from Jacoby Brissett. They held Mahomes. He had 321 passing, but only 1 touchdown. Byron Pringle led the day that day, 6 for 103 and 1. Chiefs had no rushing. I think that'll be different in this one. Eric, what do you got?
Yeah, that game, Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins were injured. Offensive line was banged up as well. Okay. Gus Bradley's the defensive coordinator for the Colts.
Okay.
End of story. I think it's 40-19 or something like that. Gus Bradley is going to run the stuff that he ran in Vegas last year, and that is the elixir for Mahomes. And also, my former colleague at PFF, I'm still technically on the clock for PFF a little bit. So my current colleague, one of my great friends, a Michigan alum, also a Chiefs fan, pulled this up for me. Patrick Mahomes indoors in his career, 22 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes on passes of 10 or more yards in the air indoors, 92.5 PFF grade, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. He is 8-0 in his career in indoor games. The shield, it might cut, they might open it up or whatever this week. But the combination of Gus Bradley not being able to run anything but that cover 3 stuff, that being a defense that Pat has solved. Also, the rest differential, right? So the Colts played on the road this past week on Sunday. The Chiefs played the previous Thursday. All this stuff, I think, leads to a Chiefs blowout.
Okay. I'm kind of in between there. I do think that the Colts are going to burn the clock. They're going to grind the run. I think the Chiefs will eventually get away from the Colts. I think the defense is hurt. To go back to the first thing we talked about, I think the Gay plus McDuffie departure And we'll see if Harrison Butker plays. That could be lost points on the board as well. I think defensively the Colts are going to have a little bit better day because I think the accumulation of injuries. But I will say this: the one thing I was going to say earlier, Chris Jones is playing like a man possessed. Like for all the when you're talking about talent, Jeff, most talented defensive lineman, the most disruptive defensive lineman in that game on Thursday night was Chris Jones. And if he's going to play like that on a regular basis, this defense looks a lot better. But I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it 30. I'm going to go 30-20 Chiefs just because I don't like coming down around the spread. I was going to say 30-23, but I'll go 30-20 Chiefs. And they move on down the road.
Where are you finding those 20 points?
Jonathan Taylor breaks one. There's a 65-yard touchdown run in there for Jonathan Taylor. There's some nickel and dime to Himes to take advantage of Leo Chenal trying to cover.
I think he's big in this game. Yeah, Himes.
Yeah. I think they're going to quit thinking Matt Ryan's got anything left in the tank, and they're going to start protecting him. I think they're going to play with their to Jeff's point about them being dangerous. I think they're going to play with their absolute hair on fire.
Interestingly, Jonathan Taylor's played 66% of third downs for the Colts. Nyheim Hines, has been last week. He was involved really early at 3 catches early, but he has not really played a lot like that. If he does things in this game, it'll be an adjustment by the Colts based upon their usages in the first couple of games. I'll just say that.
And I expect that to happen because I think Frank Reich's a fairly smart coach. I think Matt Ryan can execute a game plan. Don't ask him to thread the needle or muscle one in there. He doesn't have the fastball anymore. But I think he can execute a game plan. And I think like I said, back against the wall. I think they're going to be as dangerous as they can be. I just don't know how dangerous that is. And I think the Chiefs get it done. So we'll see. All of us on the Chiefs. We'll see what happens when they play on Sunday. So that's going to do it for us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Remember, if you're catching us via the podcast, we stream live 9 p.m. Central Time on Tuesdays. We'll be back at it with our 2 Deep, talking all NFL. Wednesday nights, we stream that at 9 p.m. If you want to catch that on the YouTube, the Facebook, and the Twitch, you can be a part of the conversation. Hit us up with those likes, the loves, the subscriptions. You subscribe. It helps us out immensely. We appreciate it. Appreciate everybody joining us here tonight on Red, Gold, and Bold.